When you think of characters that are connected with the entity, what characters come to your mind? Is it the Ghostface, for example? After all, he has the floating tendrils because it's a token of appreciation from the entity itself. Is it the spikes of the Trapper? Those were a punishment given by the entity in order for the Trapper to submit to its will. There aren't many characters in the game that have heard about the entity before coming to the fog, but we know that people in the world outside of the fog know about the existence of the entity. This is a cult called the Black Veil, and some characters have already interacted with it. Elodie Rakoto was chased by a cult member before being taken by the entity. The twins were taken by the cult in order to be experimented with, and the artist was an entire experiment made by the Black Veil. But what if I told you that there is another character that has interacted with the Black Veil in the past? A character that nobody would have guessed, and to be fair, it's impossible to know because there is no lore talking at all about this. Let's talk about the weirdest rabbit hole in Dead by Daylight, and it all starts in the grave of Glenvale. The Grave of Glenvale, or Dead Dawg Saloon, is, in my opinion, one of the best maps in the entire game in terms of visual design. This map was revolutionary because it introduced a new standard of quality for future maps. For the first time ever, there was an outside to this map with the sun setting between a canyon valley, and the map itself was extremely detailed. It had an entire saloon where you could hear the piano playing inside, as well as the gallows right next to it. There were buildings all around the map, which made this map in specific look like the most realistic, because unlike the rest of maps that were composed of random items in the middle of nowhere, in Glenvale, every building had a purpose. All of them, except the shack. Unlike the rest of buildings in Glenvale, the shack always stood out for me. From outside, it looks like a normal building that fits with the rest of the map. But once you step your foot inside, that's when things take a grim turn. First of all, and most noticeable, there are weird writings all over the walls. Weird symbols that are completely out of place and are not found anywhere else, not even outside of the grave of Glenvale. There are also animal skulls hanging on the walls and a lot of candles, which make this scene be more creepy than it is. If you take a look at the ceiling, you can see weird bags hanging and God knows what is inside of them, but based on the color it's not looking good. And when you take a look at the floor, you can see that something serious happened here, as if things couldn't get any worse. If you stay inside, you can also hear someone or something breathing. What is odd is that there is absolutely no mention of something like this anywhere in the lore. There is no mention of weird symbols in Deathslinger's backstory, nor anything of that sort in the map description. According to the map lore, there was an altercation in the saloon that led to bandits and civilians suffering from the same fate. This is also visually explained just by looking all over the map, as you can see plenty of bodies everywhere. But there is no mention of a weird cultist thing going on, or a building where something serious happened besides the saloon. The shack of Dead Dawg stood out drastically, and we know that Behavior's art team doesn't add things without care. Every detail in every map is there for a lore reason. So I decided to investigate this, and what better thing to start with than those weird symbols on the walls. Back when the PTB for this map came out, I immediately noticed how weird the symbols on the walls were. They were pretty distinct compared to the rest of the map, and I had never seen something like that in any other place before. The drawings looked like alchemy symbols, but that is weird considering the fact that the Blight, the character related to alchemy and who actually has alchemy symbols on the Blighted cosmetics, did not exist yet. My next thought went to a specific Huntress skin called the Cold Wasteland Survivor, which had weird symbols painted on the skull of the Huntress. But again, the symbols on the walls were different, so it wasn't it. But that's the interesting thing. The symbols in the PTB are not the symbols that appear in the live version of the game. That's right. For some reason, the devs decided to change the symbols of the walls to a different thing when the DLC came out, so the developers did put extra thought into them. If they were just decorative symbols, I don't think the devs would take their time in order to change them at all. And that's where the interesting part of the video begins, because we actually know what the new symbols on the walls are. These symbols are entity speech. We know that the entity has a language that it speaks, and we know this language exists because we can hear the entity talk to us whenever we use the perk Whispers. We also know how this speech looks like, as we have a weird, encrypted message in the anniversary weapons that were released 5 years ago that we still don't know the meaning of to this day, so it remains an unsolved mystery. And most importantly of all, we actually know how the letters of the entity speech look like, as they have appeared in very specific instances in the game. The first ever case of this appearing in the game is a weapon for the Huntress, which includes 4 weird letters that we have no idea what they mean till this day. But the truly important evidence for these symbols is found in an uncommon recolor of the spirit, called Dark Manifest. According to the skin, the spirit is bearing the marks of evil, in a language she does not understand. This is because the language is actually entity speech, so by looking at the skin, we can see how the symbols look like. And well, if we compare the symbols in the spirit skin to the symbols that appear on the wall in Dead Dawg Saloon, they are the same. In other words, the person that drew the symbols on the walls knew about the entity speech, so they knew who the entity was and that it existed. Inside this shack, someone attempted to do something related to the entity, but was it the Dead Singer himself who wrote those symbols? Did he sacrifice some survivor in the middle of the shack to give an offering to the entity? The answer is no. It was not Dead Singer, it was someone else. Let me explain. It is confirmed according to the lore of past maps that the entity directly takes the maps out of the mind of the killers themselves in order to recreate them in the fog. This is the canon explanation as to why the maps look so weird and nothing like the real life equivalents. This also explains some alterations that the entity does in order to fit the new realms, and this is where one interesting fact about Dead Dawg Saloon comes into place. I mentioned earlier how this map looks to be one of the most realistic maps in the entire game, in the meaning that there are actual buildings that are placed in a layout that makes sense for an old Wild West town. It is believable that people lived in those houses, unlike the majority of the maps, but something was completely off at the same time, and that is the exit gates and the map borders itself. Instead of being the normal walls and the exit gate just like in the rest of the maps, in this case, the exit gate is a steampunk style sliding door that leads to a small jail cell in the outside of the map. The entire walls of the map are built in such a way that it looks like the saloon is located inside a guarded space. There is even a watchtower in every exit gate, just like in old prisons. This is because the entity is recreating the map according to what is found in the mind of Dead Singer, and for most of his life, Singer was behind bars. The prison was his home, his friends were incarcerated, and he delivered the victims to the warden. So because of this deep connection to the prison that Dead Singer has, the entity must have subliminally made an entire town inside an old Wild West jail because it does not understand the concept of what a prison is in the first place. So if we follow this same logic, it means that when the entity recreated this town, it decided to make the most important parts that Dead Singer would remember during the time he was alive. If you noticed already by playing in this map countless of times, you would know that the tiles and buildings are constantly changing their placement, but the main distinct and important parts are always there. Those are the water tower, which would be the tallest place of the town, the saloon itself, and the gallows. Those specific spots are always there, and they do not change the place they spawn at all, no matter how many times you play on the map. And that must mean that, for Deathslinger, those are the specific places he distinctly remembers of the town of Glenvale. But that's not all. The shack is also a building that no matter what, always appears on the same part of the map. Something very interesting about this shack is that, unlike the rest of shacks in DBD that can spawn on any rotation, the Dead Dawg Saloon shack will always be in the exact same placement as it always is. The breakable wall, the window, and the pallet, no matter what, will always be in the exact same place. So in conclusion, this shack was already here before it was taken by the entity to the fog. But if Slinger didn't write these symbols, then who was it? If you are a lore expert, you would already know that there is no answer to this yet. There is no lore entry for Slinger that explains how he encountered a Black Veil cultist, and he has no Rift lore yet either. If only there was a lore entry found inside the game that directly talked about the weird symbol found in the walls. Well, say hello to the Oxen Bounty outfit. This outfit was part of the Lunar New Year event of 2021, representing the Ox. Any normal person would believe that this outfit was just done for this event and there is absolutely nothing special about it, but it is actually the most important piece of evidence for the entire video and the entire theory. According to the description of this cosmetic, this outfit belonged to a man that he was hunting after in order to claim a bounty, and he had never seen something like this outfit before. It interested him so much that after dealing with this person, he decided to keep the outfit for himself. And when you take a look at the description of the torso, called Faraway Robe, it is stated that this robe was completely unfamiliar to Slinger, or the world he had been growing in, with the added comment that it was adorned with unusual markings. Well, what if I told you that these unusual markings are actually the entity's speech, the same markings that appear in the spirit's cosmetic and in the walls of the shack? So the person that used this robe decorated the outfit with the entity's speech, and this same person was the one that was found in the shack of Glenvale. Another very interesting detail about this cosmetic is that out of all the cosmetics for Slinger, this is the only one that does not feature a leg brace in his left leg, something that Slinger did for himself later on his life after suffering from an injury to the leg. If this was not an oversight, but instead a deliberately put detail by the artist, this means that this outfit was found before Slinger was gravely injured, so it confirms that the shack incident happened before he was taken by the entity. Most importantly, we can see that Slinger has a very big wound in his lower torso, which based on the state of the bandages looks to be fresh, and in the shack of Glenvale, we can see a pool of red YouTube guidelines liquid on the floor, which could have been very well from both the victim or even Slinger himself. A very overlooked detail of this outfit is how there is a crow feather in the back, hanging from a blue crystal, and well, the entity is closely related to crows as we already know. So in other words, the conclusion we come just with this single piece of cosmetic is that 1. A man belonging to the Black Veil, or that he knew about the entity, had been giving a bounty for them dead or alive. 2. Deathslinger took the offer and went after the man who was found in the town of Glenvale. 3. Deathslinger successfully captured this person, and he noticed how unusual the drawings around the building were, or how both the person he hunted looked like, so he decided to bandage himself and steal his outfit. But this opens up more questions. Why was this man drawing entity symbols in the middle of the Wild West? what is found inside those bags that hang in the ceiling, and who is breathing inside the shack. We can only theorize about what is found inside those bags. One interesting thing to note is that they are not exclusively found in the shack, but they can also be found on normal tiles around the map. They could be organs, or small animals like birds or rodents, but that's just a theory with no evidence besides the totally not family friendly liquid. We also don't know anything about the creepy breathing or why it's there. It could definitely be the entity breathing towards us, as this place is deeply connected to it. There is another place where we can hear this exact same breathing, and it is located next to the main statue in the Sanctum of Wrath, a map for the Oni. Is this a coincidence or just a reuse of assets? But we can theorize more about the weird drawings in the shack, and my personal theory is that the man who drew them wanted to open a portal to summon the entity into the real world. And my evidence for this can be found in a past tome for Kate Denson. On that tome, we can see how she is exploring the middle of the forest when suddenly she finds a mysterious cave with, you guessed it, the same entity symbols that are found in the shack, in the slinger outfit and the spirit V color. And when she enters too far inside, a portal to the entity realm opens up in an attempt to get Kate inside. These portals to the entity dimension do exist, as another one can be found in the tome cutscene for Halloween, which also features those same weird drawings on the walls. So it is entirely possible that this man wanted to open another one in Glenvale, but instead was completely interrupted by Slinger. But even after all this evidence that proves all of this in the video, we still have a very big question lingering. Why? What is the point of behavior to make all of this? Why was the shack decorated that way? And why did the devs expand on the shack lore by using a time-limited cosmetic from a Lunar New Year event that is related to Asian culture? Why did behavior never talk about this in any lore snippet from the map or the offerings or even Slinger himself? Are they even going to talk about this in a future rift, if at all? And perhaps the most important question of all, why does the dead Slinger look towards us when we're playing him? Does he know? I think he knows. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this theory interesting and convincing. If you did, I have more videos like this on my channel, so I highly recommend subscribing and giving me all your money. Thanks!